But Eddie and I, like when he was on the booking committee in for WCW, he never ever would suggest me or say I could do this or say I could do that or whatever. And they were kind of, I was like a baby face with the Steiners, and it kind of had ran its course. If it wasn't for Jim Ross is the one that said, Missy ought to be an announcer with me, and do the interviews and stuff like that. It was Jim Ross that saved my career at WCW and had me there. And once Jim Ross left, then I had to deal with people like Eric Bischoff and some other people. And, my life was never going to be the same. So.
Yeah.
So we talked about Fritz. We talked about Bill Watts. Tell us about Eric Bischoff, as you put it.
Well, he's a liar. And the only reason why I'm alive today is because I'm going to wait until he dies so I can piss on his grave.
All right.
Yeah. Every week on his podcast, he says something nasty about me, calls me names, says a lot of stuff to me because I sued WCW and sued him for wrongful termination, equal pay. Equal pay. I sued him in EEOC, in federal court for equal pay.
Equal opportunity.
Because, I never had a dressing room. They had Teddy Long, who was one of the worst announcers ever in this business, making $250,000 a year, and I'm making $75,000 a year.
Wow.
My hotline made the company alone 1 year over $500,000.
Oh, wow.
The company. My calendar in 94 sold more calendars than the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. It was the number one sold calendar in the calendar world or whatever. And, and I got $18 for it. So
wow.
I mainly sued to try to get my money from the hotline, because 1 year they gave me a check for $33,000 for the hotline, but they still screwed me on that. It should have been like double that,
Now, Missy, I'm not trying to tell any of our ages on here, but I know we got a lot of the younger generation that listens to these podcasts to hear the stories. Can you explain to them what a hotline was and what kind of money was associated with it?
Yeah, it's kind of like when I do living history and I have a typewriter and kids look at it and they're like, is that like they look at it like they're mesmerized at a typewriter. I'm like, that's a precursor to your laptop, okay? Because they don't know what it is. But we used to have the 900 hotline, and it was 99 cents a minute. And I used to say stuff like, hey, this is Missy Hyatt. Call me on the hotline tonight. I have stories about whoever. Like one time I said, it was so funny. It was the Bruce cruise. They had a cruise going on. I said, this is Missy Hyatt. Call me on the hotline. I'll let you know which married wrestler is going to be taking his wife or his girlfriend on the cruise, right? It was just I just said it as a joke because I wasn't ever going to stooge off any of the boys because I felt like I was one of the boys. But I had Rick Steiner come up and yell at me because his wife was pregnant at the time and I guess wasn't going, and he yelled. And I'm like, dude, it's a work. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
it's like it's a work.
Yeah, when you get to those hotlines, all that kind of stuff, I mean, you're just trying to spice it up so that more people are going to call in. So it's
about like the National Enquirer and get ideas from that, or magazines, TV show. I get ideas, and I would say like, oh, Brian Pillman had so many girls. When Brian Pillman got hurt. And the one girl that was bringing him breakfast stayed too late, and the girlfriend that was bringing him lunch, they got into a fight in a yard, and the police were called. I used to make up so many stories, but it was funny story. I mean, nothing was ever malicious or anything bad. And my hotline, made a lot of money. And their world champion Sting's hotline was like nothing compared to my hotline. Because people wanted to know gossip. They wanted to know what was going on. And then I tell them what I was doing in my life. Like, oh, last night we went to the premiere of Under Siege, and Steven Seagal kept staring at me. Oh, he's so ugly. Stuff like that. Yeah.
Behind the scenes, what goes on in the life of Missy Hyatt,
Exactly.
Yes.
And so that's what I would do. And it made a lot of money. and I at least paid for my existence, 300-fold by being there. And then Eric fired me. And it was all because he was friends with Jason Hervey, an ex-boyfriend of mine, and because I broke up with Jason. But what he doesn't understand is Jason was a liar and a cheat. And that's why I broke up with him, because he lied to me and cheated on me. And then Eric, thinking that he's going to get into Hollywood, or he had this game called Kids Team Challenge or something. And he came out to LA. I let him stay at my home, let him drive my Corvette to go around to try to sell this kid show, because he was worried that he was going to get fired from WCW. And then the next thing I know, he's my boss. And because he was up Jason Hervey's ass, that he fired me.
Wow.
Yeah. And he made it sound like, oh, I threw a fit because Sherry Martel was coming in to work there. And I was like, he doesn't understand is that me and Sherry were good friends, and I knew she was coming to work there before he told me. And I asked him, I said, can I go down to the power plant and learn how to take some bumps and learn how to move and maybe work a program with her? No.
Oh,
Like, okay.
Yeah, it would have made perfect sense for the two of you to do some type of program.
Yeah. I mean, and he had me manage the nasty. Jason knew that I didn't want to be a manager, that I wanted to be an announcer. I loved doing the interviews. I had so much fun, like with Stan Hansen, doing the in-locker room interviews and opening the show and doing stuff like that. I loved doing that. And interviewing people, like interviewing Ric Flair and stuff. And so that's why they put me with the Nasty Boys. Out of all the people, they could have put me with the Hollywood Blondes. It would have made more sense. But they put me with the Nasty Boys. And that was just to be mean to me. Yeah.
Any good stories of the Nasty Boys?
Oh, my God. Okay. What they did to me one night, they left me at a bar with a beer, with a tab, like a $300 tab, So I got them back. So what I did was at the next pay-per-view, I found out what rooms they were in, and I had breakfast, everything on the menu ordered at 6 a.m. for them.
That's good.
Oh,
yeah,
fantastic.
they were knocking on his door, and they had waffles and eggs and everything I could imagine that you can order on the menu. I ordered on the menu and had it sent to their room. And then I guess they had to pay for it too. So I got
they probably didn't think, they thought somebody was doing the big favor. They were probably just chowing down until they saw the bill.
Until they got the bill. Right.
Oh my God, that's fantastic.
Now,
I had a lot of bad ribs. I mean, Elegante, I don't know if you remember Elegante.
Yes.
He was this really big guy that they paid to be a basketball player, and he couldn't play basketball, so they made him into a wrestler. And I had to do this thing about, I was chasing the Giant to try to get him to talk to me because he was wanting the belt from Flair, and all he'd say, because he didn't speak any English, was, I want the belt. I want the belt. So they had me going around like Arizona, chasing him through the desert, at a bar, trying to dance with him, just stupid shit, trying to get an interview with this guy. And he said something really, 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 which nowadays you couldn't get away with, but back in the day, he was like, you'd make a lot of money in my country. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you know what I mean, being a hooker, you'd make a lot of money in my country. I'm like, oh, gross. Wow. I was just thinking to myself, gross. So I had Eric go and put shaving cream in his boots.
Well, that actually is a very, very tame rib compared to what I've heard some of the wrestlers do to each other.
Oh, yeah. I've heard some bad stuff. Like, I came out one time and they had put locks on my windshield wipers, and it was okay until I didn't even know someone put locks on my windshield wipers until it started to rain, and I turned them on and it was like clank, 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 clank. Oh man. And then another time, I don't know who did it. I think it was Terry Gordy, but I'm not sure. But I had my duffel bag, and they padlocked a folding chair to my duffel bag. And I remember, and this is when I was managed the Nasty Boys. It could have been one of the Nasty Boys, I'm not. But they folded. So I remember I was trying to get from like Shreveport to Dallas back to Atlanta, and so I put my duffel bag on the thing that got, the radar, whatever, and put it on there with the folding chair, and folded up the chair and put it on there, and it went through the machine, and I got it. And so I get to the gate, and the gate was full, so I just opened up the chair and sat in it because I was like, I got a folding chair, why not use it?
So they're like, this lady, she comes prepared here. She's got her own chair.
I got prepared, and they let me. And for some reason, I think I put it in the front, like first class, where they have where you can hang up stuff. They let me put it up there and everything because I was like, it's padlocked to my bag. I can't do anything, and so I had to take it to the fire department and have them cut it off with their bolt cutter.